You are officially in the loop. Welcome to In the Loop podcast. I am your host, Jordan Jo Hollabaugh, professional rodeo athlete, entrepreneur, and a full-time cowgirl. I'm married to my best friend, and we are blessed to get to do what we love every day, and that is travel around the world and rodeo. My goal on this podcast is to promote the Western industry and specifically the sport of breakaway roping. On In the Loop, we bring you behind-the-scenes stories of what real life looks like every day from cowgirls, cowboys, industry leaders, producers, trailblazers, and all of the like, sharing stories of the Western culture and the lifestyle that they live daily. You are now officially in the loop. Let's get to it. Okay, guys, so today we are here with one of the ladies that I feel like has become one of my good friends. And that's what I love about rodeo, is that not only in the arena, but out of the arena, there has been so many doors open for me to meet these amazing men and women of rodeo that are involved with rodeo and continue to share these amazing stories on In the Loop. So today I am here with our guest, Miss Michelle Bilbrey, who is the official Cedar Creek Cowgirls. If you haven't checked out their makeup line, I don't know if you're watching this on YouTube or not yet, but we've both got some amazing Cedar Creek Cowgirl makeup on. It makes you feel really confident and snazzy. So Michelle, thank you so much for coming to the show today.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
So I got to meet you at the WRWC, and you did one of the neatest things I think has ever been done for a rodeo cowgirl. The girls who qualified to rope at AT&T Stadium actually got the opportunity to have their hair and makeup done for free before the performance. It was amazing. I've never had it done, period. And then to go in there, walk in, have somebody sitting there ready to do your hair and your makeup with their Cedar Creek Cowgirls makeup. It was so much fun. I left there feeling like a rock star 100%. And then obviously we get to compete that way and we look nice. Everybody's like, oh, wow, you look fancy. What's going on? And I'm like, yeah, Michelle did this. So talk about your involvement with the WRWC and women in rodeo and all of the things with Cedar Creek Cowgirls.
Okay, so when my dad was a team roper, we're back east. I grew up in Georgia, and so my dad was a team roper. He rodeoed, and I barrel raced. I roped at home because we had an arena at home, and it was just I married my husband, and I got into the cutting industry. So I kind of went back to my roots. Me and you were talking about this at women's rodeo. It's tough on you girls. I mean, most of us hold a 9-to-5 job. Most of us hold, kids, everything, you just got everything thrown in your lap. And so I wanted to give back to the women in rodeo. And there is nothing about me not giving back to cowboys because I love cowboys. Every cowgirl has a cowboy behind her or some great man. And you will never see women owned on my makeup brand because it's not women owned. It's owned by my husband and I, and it would not be here without him.
Yep.
And so they reached out to us from Women's Rodeo. Last year we had just launched and we were in Fort Worth with a Cowgirl channel. And so we had sent some prize boxes to them. Chelsea was like, hey, you want to send some prize boxes over? And I said, yeah. So she got them over to her friend there. And this year we got contacted by them. They asked, did we want to sponsor? And of course we did. Because we want to give back to whatever we can. I mean, it's a lot for you girls. And I just want to be there to boost y'all up. And that was part of the reason for the makeup company also, because a little bit of color can change your total mood. And so we got to brainstorming, Sammy Jo and Lindsay and all of us. And we were brainstorming and they were like, let's bring some makeup artists in. And we contacted a school here in Dallas. And they were like, well, we're on our way. We'll do it. And it was just amazing.
It was such a fun experience.
Yes. And those girls, getting them to get their makeup done, it was just, I got to talk to them. And I love people's stories. I love hearing people's stories. And so getting to sit down and talk with you guys, it was just amazing to me.
Well, and I think that that's the cool thing too, because as an athlete and as a business owner, the things they co-emerge, right? Because essentially as an athlete, rodeo is our business, right? But I think that we are put on a pedestal to where people don't think that they can connect and or relate to us. which is so false because at the end of the day, we're human, right? And we all go through the same things. So I thought that that was a really neat aspect to merge, we'll just say in the arena, with the business and the rodeo. And we took all the things aside. And at the end of the day, we were women who wanted to show up and leave there feeling great and confident and proud and encouraged. And that is what Cedar Creek Cowgirls is. And so as you and I have got to become friends and we're talking, I'm like, man, I would love to tell your story on the podcast. And so I'm so glad you're here today. But I do want you to kind of tell me your story because as I was sitting there and I was like, so where did Cedar Creek Cowgirl come from? And why the makeup line and all the things? And you told me one thing that I will never forget. You said, not only did you say color changes your mood, but you said, when you can walk out of your bathroom, bedroom, wherever that day and have a tick of confidence, it completely changes your mood. When you can put makeup on and you leave there feeling confident, it completely changes your day when you need it the most. And that I was like, man, that is so true, you know. So talk to me a little bit, tell me about your story, how Cedar Creek came to be, and what your passion is behind that.
Okay, so my husband and I, we live in Tennessee. We run cattle on about 3,000 acres. We have over 800 head of mama cows. We have 36 horses. The We see life and death every day. The life is just amazing. I mean, it's just wonderful because you see the new babies born, you see this, but then comes, in any operation, you've got a death loss. And so it's tough. And those death losses for the cattle, I may not even know them. Half my cows has got names, but even the ones that we don't even know, it's just like you drive to the back of the pasture, you cry, and you're like, why am I doing this? And so, but you've got to pull yourself together and go back because there's 799 other things that need you right then. And it gets a lot. And the ranching and the farming industry is hard. We've got new regulations coming in. So every morning you get up, you feel like you're beat up. Same with the rodeo industry. The rodeo industry's got people waiting to shut y'all down. Cutting industry, anything to do with animals, there's somebody there waiting to pounce on you. And so anything that could lift my mood, I would do it. And I started seeing that if I put my makeup on, that it just changed my attitude for the whole entire day. It did not matter what Joe the plumber was saying on the internet about us being horrible people because we had cattle here. It was, we're doing this. We're feeding the country. We're doing good things. So that's one reason I done it. The other reason I done it, we lost one of our studs, Athena Putty Cat, to horrific circumstances. And his last foal crop hit, and I just could not get out of the bed. Like, normally I go to the futurity, I watch his baby show, I cheer him on. I just couldn't do it. And I was like, this is it. This is the last time his name is going to be called out. And I'm one of these people, I do not want my name called out. I'm going to crawl under a desk if you call my name out. You call my husband, my sons, or, my horse's name out, and I'm going to embarrass all of us. So that was a lot for me. And I wanted to combine the love for my horses and everyone else's horses, kind of honor those horses. And with makeup, because it does lift your mood, and we are in tough industries, and anything I can do to boost you ladies up, I want to do it. Because I have finally found my happiness. I'm not going to say after how many years, but I have finally found happiness. And I do not want these young girls coming into these industries to take them 20 years to find happiness, to, have to figure out what's going to bring them something. One of my favorite quotes is, you've got first to understand the black and white to enjoy color. And that is so true. You have to walk through the dark to get to the good. But I want to cut those dark periods in half for those girls. I want them to see the good instead of the bad. And so we called up Phil Rapp because I told Jim, we can't do this without Don't Look Twice and Tap Twice. And I said, and I don't know if they'll let me have those names or not. We do not, you will not wake up in the morning and see your horse's name on a pallet. We do everything with permission. We've campaigned studs, we've campaigned mares. We know what it costs. And when they're gone, those names are all that you have. And so every horse name that we've used has been with permission. And so Phil said, well, I've sold them, but Bobby and Lori Gale have them. So I talked to Bobby, and Bobby said, hang tight. I've got a whole list of horses I'm going to send you. And these were mares with earnings of over, 200,000, 100,000. Wow. And I'm like, well, we just got to switch this completely up because I'd had studs mixed in on the pallets with them. And so we just did a full mare power pallet. And I'm like, for our first launch, that is going to be amazing because that's what we want to give. We want to give girl power. We want to give mare power. So that Mare Power palette holds a lot of history into it.
Well, and I was fortunate enough, you sent me, which I told you, I'm like, I love makeup. I don't really know how to put it on. You're going to have to teach me, right? I've just like YouTubed it a few times and still getting it wrong. We're trying to figure it out. But it does. I absolutely love it. Like, that's one of the things in our industry. I feel like as growing up, it was like, you don't wear makeup or you do wear makeup or whatever that may be. That's one of the things that I love. And you having the authority, the power, the courage, all the things. I love that quote. I've never heard it before. You've got to learn first the white and the black to be able to experience the color. And in our industry, growing up as a young lady, I didn't really, it was like I loved playing princess and dress up in Barbies and all those things. Like I know some people are like, "Really, you did? Are you sure you were a tough girl?" I'm like, "No, my little sister. That's what I used her for. Like literally." I had a live Barbie doll. Riley is going to kill me. I had a live Barbie doll, and I would literally dress my sister up in her clothes, put makeup on her, curl her hair. She would cry, but she had no choice because I made her do it, right? And I loved it. I love playing dress up. And so I think that our young ladies that are growing up today, it's like, let's teach them how to be empowered through the way they look and makeup and all those things and bring that to a positive light. And so when I got my Cedar Creek Cowgirls makeup, I sent you a text and I was like, this is amazing. I love
Yes.
my Mare Power palette, all the lip glosses. Like, you got to tell me how to put it on. And you were like, okay, I will. So, but it was so neat to go through there, open that Mare Power palette up and just see all those horses' names. Cause then I was like, oh, I wonder what this horse, because I'm not familiar with all of these horses yet. So, but then it took me to another step where I was like, I'm going to go look this horse up and I'm going to go look this horse up. And so
Yes.
it's just kind of cool knowing that throughout every day as I walk in, I put my Mare Power on, I've got a little bit of somebody else's history on my eyes, on my cheeks, on my lips.
And like our stud Athena Putty Cat, he was a highbrow cat son. And so there's so many highbrow cats out there. So it's not like you're just wearing my horse. There if you've got a highbrow cat, you're wearing part of your horse too because they're related. Dill Ray, we had Dylan Boone. So with Dylan Boone, you've got the Dill Ray bloodline. Boone San Sally but I think Boone San was his mom. And so, you've got all of these horses with so much history there. And it's neat because the rodeo world is now moving over with the cutting world and they're buying into the cutting horses, the cow horses there. And so I'm loving that so much. And I am not anti man at all. But I'll tell you the most proudest thing that I had ever seen. And Sheridan Clark, I believe she won the Triple Crown on a Putty Cat. And no matter what those guys had done, this little girl come out there and she whipped them on a Putty Cat. And that was just the greatest thing to me. I took her a horse for it. But getting to see, like, I only get to see trainers ride my horses. We'll show too, but I only get to see the trainers ride. And there's very few women trainers in the cutting industry. I watch Kara Brewer from a side, and Kara is just like this amazing woman. I just love her. I have never even met this woman, and she's probably my favorite trainer ever because I watch her with her customers. I'm a people person. I watch. But getting to see this young girl do that was just amazing. And now we've switched over and we've crossed with some running bred studs. And so I'm going to get to see some other girls ride my horses. That's awesome. That is just amazing to me. A little girl from Georgia, she has one of our cutting horses, and I watched them grow up together. Because when you get my horse, you get me. Like, I'm going with the horse. You got to keep up with me. So, I've got to live their lives with them. I've got to be a part of the journey. And that was just amazing.
Well, and that's something else that you and I talked about a little bit before this that I wanted to kind of elaborate on today is the journey, right? And I think one of the things that you and I have discussed is we both have been on separate journeys, but we've been able to identify two with similar pieces. And one of the biggest things that we've talked about is, like you said, going back to the black and white, right? There's life and then there's death. And I know that that's a tough conversation to have, right? Everybody's like, no, we don't want to talk about loss. But through loss, through the beauty through the ashes, there's beauty, and we walk through the fire, right? And so some of those conversations I think need to be had about some of the tough pieces of the journey that maybe brought light to something else alongside of the journey. And I don't think we talk about those enough. And, you and I were talking in the ranch and farm industry, mental health is huge because the suicide rate is the highest. You told me it's higher in that industry than it is in the veterans. Like,
Yes.
that is just saying that out loud is like, oh my gosh. And then you're like, but we don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about this journey. We don't talk about it at all. So I want to give you a little bit of space to elaborate on your passion there. And like you said, you want to help these people because you've been through some of this stuff.
Yes. And the it's taboo for a man to say I need help in the Western industry. It is very taboo. And you don't know what that man carries on his shoulders. And here's where I'm the biggest advocate for men, because I have sons, I have a husband, I have a dad. So we don't know what it's like to come home and say, look, we've had a bad year, we're losing the farm. We don't know what it's been like for him to carry that around for those people and his family. Times are tough. Drought hits. We battle Mother Nature. We battle the government. We battle all kinds of stuff every morning. And to sit there and wonder if you're going to lose a family farm that's been in the family for years, generations, if a fire is going to come through and wipe out everything you have, because there's a lot of stuff that you can't insure with farming. And we see these huge farming bills pass in legislation. And it's like, I think the last one was like 1.2 trillion, but only 10% of that 1.2 trillion goes back to the farmers for disaster.
Mm.
And so when you're on, I love social media. It's helped me get my business out. It's helped me meet people like you guys, but the downside of it, I've read stuff from it saying we're welfare farmers, we're this, we're that. I mean, tomorrow morning, the Supes could walk in and decide to cash out on the cattle market. And guess what? The cattle market's going to go.
Right. We have no control.
No control. And, we're battling suits, governments, weather, everything, disease. I mean, we vaccinate here 3 times a year. We do everything we can do to keep them alive and healthy. But when you have a temp swing of 40 degrees and you've got new baby calves on the ground, it's bad. We had an astronomical storm here that we don't normally have. We had over 10 inches of snow this year.
Wow.
And we had 2 Arctic blasts come in on top of it. So everything was ice. We had just bought some replacements and they were not supposed to calve until the spring. They started calving. I had 10 calves in the barn hooked to IVs. The vet can't come because the roads are closed. It's just this stuff every day. And I told my husband that night, I said, I've never lost this many calves because I'm used to it. I'm basically our veterinarian when my veterinarian can't get here. And I said, I've never lost this many calves. And he said, we've never had an event like this happen.
Mm.
And so, it's just so tough. And my husband sees me working. There's times he'll say, I can't believe that you live this life. And those men, they carry all of that. And what he doesn't see, I love this life. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. I got to stay in the city for 4 days. I was so glad to get home. I have never been more happy to be home. But if you see my Facebook, and that's what I don't like about social media, you see my Facebook, you think all I do all day is pet cows, love on my dogs, and love on my horses. But you don't see the in between. You see 15 minutes of my life. You see me pull by the lane and do that. And so these people think it's just the greatest thing ever. We tell our kids, you've got to do something first to make a living before you come to the farm. Mm-hmm. Because you've got to have another way to support it. Because we don't want that mental health on them. We don't want them. My son's got a college degree. All of them do. But my son's just graduated from college. He has his own job now. So he has a way to make a living if something happens. It's not over. If a drought happens and he has to sell out, he can go work and pay the bills around here until he can until he can get the cattle bought back up and stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that's what, and I know people probably think that's crazy that we push our kids away a little bit, but they can come back when they have experience. They can come back when they can be financially stable without a farm income. And I don't think that people realize we have to do that to our kids. And because my son would love no more than to be right here, right now. Yeah. And he can't be. I'm not going to put him through that.
Well, and I think that that's something we don't talk about enough is like you're saying, the burdens that are carried with the job, right? With the farming occupation, with the ranching occupation, with rodeo, with cutting. Like there's so much overhead risk and all things. Would we trade it for anything? No. But is it something just like anything else? You have to figure out the ebb and flows, the up and downs,
yes,
the good, the victories, and the trials. Absolutely. And there are a lot of tough times that I think people don't see. I laugh when you say social media doesn't do you justice, because literally I've talked to you on the phone several times, and most of the time, like, I'll laugh. I'll never forget. You were like, I'm in the truck pulling the trailer for my husband. He's picking up hay and I'm working on my website. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are like superwoman. But that's what we do, right? We find
Yes,
a way to make it work, and all the different irons that we have in the fire. And that's not just women, that's men as well.
yes.
I love to say, I don't have a man. My husband is not in front of me. He's not behind me. He's beside me. Absolutely not. Without him, I couldn't be doing this. And so I think that's, for me, I'm like, God put us together side by side to work together and get to the end of these. But some of those conversations need to be had, because there are a lot of burdens that come, and it's just like we don't navigate through those.
No, we don't. And we expect those men to be tough. And, they were brought up that way. Their dads were that way. Their grandpas were that way. And they won't, my husband tells me all the time, I don't coddle Alex because I want him to be a man. I want him to stand on his own, because Jim's older now and he's afraid that he's not going to be here for Alex. And so there's a lot of times he's tough on Alex. But I think it goes back to he wants him to be a man and stand on his own without the coddling. But at the same time, we've got to say, okay, it's okay to not be okay.
Mhm.
It's okay to have a bad day, but don't let that bad day last. Talk about it. And my husband is the provider. Right now he's baling hay, and it's everything. Everything is on his shoulders. And my job is to help take stuff off of his shoulders. I'm the accountant. I'm the cook. I'm the one that's putting mineral out when they can't do that. The farm hands go check the cows in the mornings. I check them in the evenings if they're in the hayfield. We're all working together as a team. And, I hate that thing we're 50-50, because we're not 50-50. There's days when I can't give 100%. So my husband gives 100%. There are days that he can't give 100%. So I step in and I take those up. And it's long nights and it's tough. Would I trade it? No. And no, I am not poor mouthing. This is where I want to be. We've had workers leave us in the cow pen, and me and him swapped out the cow pen at 4 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah.
And so it's rough.
Yeah.
And there's times like that you want to say, okay, we're done. But I think it steps back to us. We're caretakers. We're feeders. My grandmother, you never when it left her home hungry. She always fed me. And so I feel like I'm carrying on a little bit of that tradition, raising beef.
Yeah.
I'm helping feed everyone.
I love that. Well, and too, I love how you said, like, it's okay to have a bad day. And I think for me personally, like, just, learning, Dr. Caroline Leaf is somebody that she's going to come on the show too, but I've learned a lot from her programs and things like that. But it's like, okay, I'm having these feelings. Now what do I do with them? Good, bad, or indifferent, right? It doesn't have to be just bad feelings. Like, hey, I'm having a great feeling today. Like, now how do I process that? Or like, hey, I'm going through a tough emotion today. I'm dealing with this challenge. How do I process that, right? Because then we're bringing those things to light, and then they don't have control over us anymore. And so I say that to say, like, this conversation, I think we could go obviously more in depth to it at some point in time, but I say it to say that good, bad, and indifferent, we've just got to be able to feel those things and process them and walk forward, walk through them to help everybody in our industry, whether it's farm, ranch, whatever it is, grow. And if you've been through the valleys, I think what you have, then that's where you're like, I have a passion to help people. It's coming out through my expression and feeding people as far as our beef and everything goes like that. But for women, it's Cedar Creek Cowgirls, and it's your makeup line.
Yes, it is. And we during winter here, it's rough. And so I noticed when springtime comes, that little bitty tiny bit of green, it just make you happy, because you're counting bales of hay. We feed 50 rolls of hay every 2 days. And so you're counting bales of hay. You're like, are we going to make it? We're going to make it. And then you see that little bit of color and you're like, we're going to make it. We're going to make it. And so we started with the eyes, because when you look in a mirror, the first thing that you look at is your eyes. That's the first thing you come in contact with. So I want a little bit of color on there. That way, if you are having a bad day, the serotonin in your brain is going to release, because you're going to see that little bit of color and you're like, it's okay. And it may not make you jump over the moon, but it's enough to lift you up. And so that's why we started with the eyes. That's why we started with the lips, because those are two things that you directly look at when you look into the mirror.
Yeah.
And it's if you can lift your mood a little bit, you've got to be able to pull yourself out of the valleys. And so that's what we're here to do.
I love it. And that is what you have done. I mean, I'm a living testament. I got my eyes on today and my lips, and I'm like, I need to do this more often. Like, should brush my hair, makes a girl feel good.
I don't look like this all the time. I try to, because when I go to the cow pen, it's dusty. I mean, it's horrid. And so to cover my pores up, I put my face makeup on because it at least blocks the pores from the bacteria and the dust getting into my pores. And so I try to do that. But my face makeup has SPF 15 in it, so it's a little bit of skin coverage for that because I'm a big person on sun damage. My husband, he has, we go have skin cancers taken off of him, and it's just from over time of being out in the sun entirely too much. And so I'm a big person on sunblock. Anything you can do to protect your skin. And so put your sunblock on, put your makeup on, and then you've got a little extra layer of protectant there.
Yeah, I love it. And two, I want to just touch a little bit on all the things you're doing. We talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the podcast, but all the things you're doing for women in rodeo. I'm breakaway roping, obviously specific, but I was talking to you about breakaway roping the other day. And I loved the perspective that you gave. And so I want to share this story just a little bit with you and everybody that's listening here. So I was telling Michelle, I'm like, these are all of the amazing rodeos that are adding breakaway. The finals, the NFBR is growing, it's getting bigger. We're having so many opportunities. And you said something that I will never forget. You said the men in the rodeo industry are literally going to be y'all's heroes one day. Like they are giving you these opportunities to knock these doors open and have the opportunities to be a part of women in rodeo, breakaway roping professionally, and one day at the end of the light in the tunnel, get to the national finals of rodeo.
Yes. And I live for the day that I get to see you girls in the Thomas and Mack. And I know this is crazy, but I told you I'm a people watcher. And in the winter, I have a lot more time because, I've got time to scroll. I've read Jackie Crawford's stories. I've read Martha Angeloni's stories. I just love Martha Angeloni. I read her story about her horse, and I just love that. So, but, do you girls deserve to be in the Thomas and Mack? Yes, you do. But I think where people do not realize what's fixing to happen is one of these guys are going to be like, you know what? These girls do deserve to be here. They don't want to be here in front of us. They don't want to be here to take over the NFR, but they want to be here to help us grow the NFR. And Breakaway is taking things by storm. And I mean, it's caught my eye. And I watch you ladies because y'all are very horsewomen. I don't need to say horsemen, horsewomen, but y'all got calm hands. You sit still. Those horses are in the box. They're quiet. They're calm. And I'm not the only one that notices that. My husband noticed that. My son noticed that. And I have no problem with any breakaway roper pulling in my driveway and saying, hey, I need a horse tonight. I'll throw it on the trailer. But those guys are going to see that, and they're going to see that it helps build the sport of rodeo. And it's going to help keep this from dying. And they're going to put you guys in the Thomas and Mack. That's going to be every dad, uncle, brother, husband, everybody, every little 6-year-old girl that's watching you guys right now. That man is going to be their hero. Mm-hmm. And I am so excited to find out who that hero is going to be.
Yeah, I love that. When you said that guy, those guys are going to be every girl's hero. I thought, man, that is a great perspective to have, and I loved that viewpoint on it all. But Michelle, I want to thank you for doing all the things that you're doing for women, for men in the industry and all. Everybody that comes on my show, I ask them one question, which I'm very interested to see what yours is going to be, your answer to this. If you had to go back and you had to give younger Michelle a piece of advice, what would that be and why?
You're going to make me cry. Okay, so I've told you, I grew up in a roping family. And so barrel racing wasn't important. And we didn't have breakaway, and that's why I'm so emotional about breakaway. And if I had had that, I think I would have continued on roping. But back east here, we don't have the jackpots. We don't have that. So once you finish with high school rodeo, breakaway's done. And my husband told me last year, he said, breed the horse you want as a little girl. And so now I'm about to start crying. But I bred 3 that I wanted. And so if I could go back and tell the little girl in me, those crappy rope horses that taught you everything you know and that you still loved, even though they weren't the best, just hang tight because you've got something good coming.
Mm, that's good. Now you're gonna make me cry.
I tell you, my husband is one of the most amazing men ever. We bred to Ivory James, Freight Train B, and Inspiry. And I may not ever show them because I don't. I mean, I told you I'll crawl under something, but I'm gonna have some girl sitting on them. I mean, it's like we were at women's rodeo, and here I come up on the big screen, and I'm like, oh God, and I was just like hunkering down in my chair, and my husband goes, Michelle, sit up. About that time, they flashed my little Ivory James filly up there, and I just start crying. I'm like, oh, look at my horse, and
That's awesome.
yeah, so we have rules. We don't ask Michelle about her horses around here because that's a long conversation.
Well, I'm about to ask you now because I'm intrigued. So, the horses that you bred, if you would have had of those little girls, so now you've got those on the ground, I'm assuming. So, tell me,
Yeah.
like, what is your passion? What is your vision for these horses?
You know, Jim said we're going to send them to a cutting trainer. And I was like, no, we're not. I'm probably going to send them to a reining trainer and let them get a little bit of handle on them. And then I'm going to find some girls to put them with and just to see how they go with breakaway or running barrels. And our horses are hot, like they're already hot. Doolin Boone, Ronnie Rice, and Tag Rice both showed him without spurs. And
Mm,
I bred one of his daughters to Ivory James. So this horse may not be able to stand still when she gets older. She was born with just a calm mind, sweet disposition.
mm,
And so if I my dream is to watch some girl live out her dream on her
I love
and
that.
her still be mine.
I love
So
that.
that
Well, and I think that just, for me, it's like women empowering women, right? And not just women and women, men and women. I mean, we're all the same, right? God created us all, but just the empowerment in this industry, and it takes so much from so many different angles. So knowing that there are people in the industry such as yourself that are willing to be like, "Hey, this is where my part is. This is what I want your part to be. Let's work together on this." I think that that's so cool and such a needed thing, right? And the more people we can have do that and come alongside, it's like, really, what is there are no limits here, right?
there's
There
not.
isn't.
And I love seeing my horses perform, but I don't like doing it. The first time that when I showed at the futurity, and so I went and rode with one of our trainers every day, and he was like, Michelle, this is not a barrel race. You cannot hold your breath for 14 seconds, And I was holding my breath the entire time, and like these people came in that was his customers, and they started watching me, and I'm like, and just he said, this is 2.5 minutes. You're gonna fall off the horse from no air. Breathe. And
Got
so
to breathe.
yes. And so I'm not one of those that like to go out there, but I love seeing my horses go out there. I love seeing my horses make people happy. And so that's people ask me as a breeder, they're like, how do you love this horse for a year or 2 years and then send it down the road? And because we do sell horses. And the reason I do is because I'm watching some my horses be the best they can be while living out someone else's dream.
Yeah.
And that is very fulfilling to me.
Well, and I love that too because it's like not everybody has that opportunity. Just like here at our facility, my husband and I, we don't have enough space to have the breeding program that we need to have these mares, to have these babies, and all this stuff running around and all those things. But those are something that to continue to breakaway rope, I'm going to have, right? I have to have horses coming up. And so people that are just like you that are like, I have a passion, I want to breed them. And then, like you said, some of them you're going to keep and some of them you're going to let go. But you've started those horses, you've been that foundation. And that's what makes the industry go round.
It does. And, and I think going back to breakaway roping, the breeders, the sponsors, I mean, when they put y'all in the Thomas and Mack, these men are going to be put up on a pedestal because every one of us want to see the same thing. We don't want to see y'all go in there and take over. We want to see y'all help build the rodeo world right alongside those cowboys. And I mean, there's what better way than to put y'all in the Thomas and Mack with them?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I have never been to the NFR, but I'll tell you this: they put breakaway roping in there, I'll be out there.
well, if they put breakaway roping in there, I'll get you a ticket. Fear not.
Thank you.
Michelle, it's been great to visit with you. What's coming up for Cedar Creek Cowgirls this summer and on into the fall?
Okay, so me and you have a little thing going on, and we have come out with one of our fall layups. It's going to be a nutmeg color, what we're gonna do, that lip's gonna be $27.50. $10 of it from every sale of that lip goes back to the breakaway ropers. And wherever you're at, if you want to make a bounty run, it's going to be totally up to you to do that. We have a lipple because I know some people do not wear makeup, but our lipples, you go to bed, put it on at night, go to bed, your lips are healed in the morning. We all have tough lips. And if you want to wear it during the day, put a little bit on for a shine during the day. We have both of those coming out with both of our logos on. $10 from each one of those will go back to the breakaway ropers.
And I am so excited about that because my biggest thing is I want to give back too, right? And that's why we started all this, because I'm like, I want to give back. I want to bring this industry in front of everybody, tell these stories. And so for In the Loop to be able to partner with Cedar Creek Cowgirls,
Yes.
I'm like, literally, we're taking over the world, right? We're like starting
Yes.
one lip at a time.
And I don't think people realize it. And they're like, y'all are just talking to the people on the bottom. But the people, the girls at the top up there, there's somebody looking to knock y'all off. I mean, it's competition,
No.
and there's this little 6-year-old girl watching videos right now. How can I be faster than them?
Yep.
And when she gets up there, she's going to knock y'all off. And getting
I
at the
know.
top and staying at the top is hard. So, I mean, if somebody's having a bad day, I want to put a bounty on a calf, and that 250 might make them come back to the next one. If it's somebody just starting out, that 250 may uplift somebody that's at the top spirits and say, "Hey, I might not have won, but I got a tank of diesel out of this."
Mhm. And that's what you and I talked about is, and I think we have a passion for that, is there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that nobody really sees, right? You only see in the forefront, like on social, on the Cowboy channel, wherever the results are posted, who's done good, who's winning, who's in front of the media. But then as a competitor, and then just like you yourself, you see things all the time that go on behind the scenes that maybe somebody's struggling that they didn't say anything you don't know about, but you see it. And so if we see that, we're going to come up and we're going to be like, hey, this is a gift from Cedar Creek Cowgirls In the Loop. We're partners together.
Yes.
Keeps you going down the road, gives you some hope, confidence, inspiration, all the things, and makes you feel good about it at the end of the day to keep going, to keep moving forward, to walk through that valley. So that's kind of our passion together.
Yes, it is. And anybody that buys that lip, they're supporting the breakaway ropers
Mhm.
because, I mean, Danielle Logan is one of my heroes too. I love that girl. I've never met her. And y'all will see me. I will not just come up and bother somebody and talk to them. I wanted to talk to her though, because she's just like one of my all-time favorites. Martha Angeloni, I heard her story about the horse, about she was borrowing horses when she first started out,
Yeah.
and she didn't even have a horse. Girl, if she gets in that bind again, just come see me. I got 36. We'll put something on the trailer. But seeing, I love that story about Martha because it showed she came from not even having a horse to actually being able to buy a horse because of women's rodeo world
Mhm.
championship. And that's, we can't buy them a horse, but we can help them out a little bit.
Right. Well, and there's so many stories like that. Martha is one of my good friends too, and she's been on this podcast I think like 10 times because I'm always like, "Hey, Martha, come on the podcast." She was my very first episode, but it's just that story to me is intriguing. Like she literally did it, with a lot of help from a lot of people, but she came from nothing and she came from nowhere and she made it happen. And so it's like it debunks some of the belief of like, well, I don't have this, so I can't do that. No, anything we set our minds to, we can make it happen. We come into fruition. And she is one of the living proofs in the breakaway roping world of that. And so it is
Yes.
a really cool story.
Well, you have to let me meet her because
Oh,
her
I
and
will. I'll hook you up.
Jackie Crawford, I need to meet those because I read it. I didn't see it. So in the summertime, I have to scroll, through our social medias, checking them, and I'll see something pop up. But I saw something about Jackie Crawford possibly retiring, and I have no idea. I don't even know this woman, but the thought of her retiring without backing in at the Thomas and Mack literally makes me sad, and I never went back and read it to see if it was just clickbait or if she was actually talking about retiring. But that's another thing, to see these greats get to back at that Thomas and Mack beforehand. There's so many people going to be excited about that.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that we're just passionate, right? We're women. We're
Yes.
passionate about those things. And, just to have that dream and have that desire and have that hope and that fire, that's all we can live for, right? We can't control some of the things and that are out of our reach, but we can dang sure dream about it. And so I think that we're going to do that and keep moving forward. And I just appreciate you come alongside of us and our partnership within the loop. I think I'm so excited about it. Our lip will be coming out soon. We will keep you guys all in the loop and posted when that comes out. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time today, for sharing your story and being on In the Loop podcast.
Thank you. See you soon.